And today we're going to talk about numbers, right? Right now we're looking at the style guide for The Guardian and The Observer, and they tell us to spell out from 1 to 9, and numerals from 10 to 999,999. 999,999. I think that's what I said. Okay, let's go back. Thereafter use million, billion, tien, trillion, sorry, for sums of money, quantities or inanimate objects in copy, that is to say in text, right? So 5 million tons of coal, 30 billion doses of vaccine, 50 trillion pounds, but million or billion for people or animals. Example, 1 million people, 25 million rabbits, and the world population is 7 billion. Actually, you should not separate the number from the word, right? Which brings me to do something I didn't do at the beginning. Let's see. Yes. I want another one. Give me a second. I know that's all there is, right? Yes, here it is. Sorry. A billion is 1,000 million, so mil millones, right? In copy, in text, we're going to see this word in a minute, use billion for sums of money, quantities, or inanimate objects. 10 billion, 1 billion liters of water, otherwise just billion, 6 billion people use billion in headlines, BN in headlines. Now, that's initially the case, but actually most British use today actually challenges that. Now, here's a very messy summary of what you will find in the chapter 9, numbers, from the Chicago style guide that I'm going to share with you by email, right? And then we're going to look at what Swan says. But I made a selection of some of the things I wanted to share with you. The idea is that our question is how to handle numbers, right? How do we manage? What do we do? Do we spell them out or do we use numerals, right? This is the language we need to use to talk about language. How do we handle them? Do we spell them out or do we use numerals, right? Well, we spell out whole numbers, round numbers, single-digit numbers, ordinal numbers, and look at this. Oh, sorry, I'm using capitals. What happens is that, just give me a second, you get the superscript, right, automatically, right? But this is no longer used, right? This is basically a thing of the past, right? So these are ordinal numbers that show order, and cardinal numbers, these are the ones that show quantity, right? To the nth degree, right? In order to show this, we need to use italics for the n, right? To show that this is not a full word, right? So the th is the one for I don't know, fourth. And you see how we get the superscript right away. And I insist this is no longer used, right? This is I mean, not very frequent, right? Remember, this is letra redonda, right? And this is italic, right? Italic or cursiva. All right. Then, well, we have here this question of billion being mil millones, right? So 9 zeros. But I insist that now, in most cases, for all speakers in English, billion means, sorry, I want to clarify this, that in Spanish, a billion no es un billón, sino mil millones, right? Because un billón in Spanish is 12 zeros. One group, two groups, three groups. So I added spaces that are not necessary, right? Esto es un billón en castellano. And the same happened in British English, right? So a billion in English would be that in British English, right? But a billion in American English is 1.000 millones in castellano, right? But initially what I'm trying to say is that now billion in from whatever source in English should most of the case be 1.000 millones in castellano, whether it is British or American, right? This is how we use symbols, right? We leave a space, 50 kilometers, 4 liters, 240 volts, 1 hectare, 85 grams. But look at this. This is not what I meant. I meant 10 degrees Celsius. So I need the superscript, right? And it's and actually there are no spaces here. Yes. Then when we talk about in the Chicago Manual of Style, they speak about humanistic copy or mathematical copy. Copy is matter to be set up for printing, right? So it's that the words, not just words, but numbers as well, that you send, for people in the printing session of a business to prepare, right? Remember that in the past meant using materials that we no longer use. Today, everything is computerized, right? And that's why, speaking of copy, that's why we speak of a copywriter, a copy editor, or to write copy, which means to write text. So in humanistic copy, we use 10% with words, but 10% mathematical copy. And you see here no space, but this varies, to be frank, right? As regards dates, this is the most standard way of providing a date, April 5, 2020, Thursday, August 23rd, 2020. The 2020s, right, the decades, no apostrophe, because this is just a plural, not a genitive. And usually we speak about the first decade of the 21st century or the second decade of the 21st century, not the 10s or the 20s, right? Now, as regards this word era, well, I wanted you to see, well, we can see Fahrenheit. I wanted you to see the spelling and the pronunciation, Fahrenheit, right? 50 degrees Fahrenheit, that's what we say. We use, as you can see, we use the figures. But what about the pronunciation for this word? I said era. Yes, British English, era. American English, era or era, right? When we speak about eras, right, we speak of the common era, common era. So now, right, before, after Christ, BCE, before the common era, right? So before the birth of Christ, AD, the year of the Lord, Anno Domini, BC, before Christ, and to be frank, I don't know how to pronounce this, so I'm not going to say it. Now, as regards telling the time, we tend to use colon in English. We also use AM in block capital letters, also followed by a stop, and now simply just AM, right? Remember that in Spanish, for this we should use not versales, sino versalitas. Tendría que ser un poquitito más chiquititas, right? That's it, in Spanish. Now, in Spanish, we use a 24-hour system to tell the time, and usually we just use a stop, a full stop, not a colon. Noon means 12 at midday, and midnight means 12 at night. We also see people telling the time speaking about 1200 hours, which means basically noon, right? You know that for these numbers we read this as Elizabeth II, right? And also in English we count congresses, so we speak about sorry, let me, because that was the end of this, ordinal numbers for governing bodies, right? So we speak about the 116th U.S. Congress right now. The next one will be in November. Now, this is a very brief summary of what the Chicago Manual of Style says, and there were also, I gave you also the entry from Swan, which is entry 389, and you get here how to read fractions, as, for example, 2/5, right? 11/16, right? So you use ordinal and cardinal numbers at the same time, right? Also, when you find a 0, we tend to say not, right? Not, right? So when we read this figure, we say 0.4. So I'm going to go fast here because I only want to single out the examples that I think you need me to help with. Also, when we read a figure, instead of saying a naught, we also say O, right? So, for example, especially for phone numbers, right? 304 444 66, right? Now, in English, we don't have this idea of característica, and I'm sure many of you have forgotten that we used to have a característica para un teléfono, right? We used to know where somebody's phone was located depending on this first three numbers. Right now, it is four, as you well know. In English, the only thing we have is an area code, right? So the first numbers, but not the first four numbers. Usually, you have something like this, and you have, I don't know, I'm going to give you 301, which is the area code for Maryland, right? All right. One more thing I want to point out is that we use, it says here in point number 7, we use cardinal numbers for books, for example, or for rules. We say rule 1. Rule 1. Or, yes, or the expression from day 1. This is very natural in English. It is not in Spanish, unless, of course, you're copying English, right? So, la primera regla, y desde el primer día, no desde el día 1, ni la regla 1, right? That's very odd in Spanish if you think about it. But it's something we have copied from English, right? Oops, another thing I have forgotten to say, right? You know that in Spanish, we have number 30, and then we have number, we have number 31 in all languages, right? How do we read this number in Spanish? 31 or 31? Actually, it is 31, 32, 33, etc., etc., right? And remember that from 21 to 99, numbers are hyphenated in English, right? Okay. Okay, so remember that we can use either a comma to separate three digits or simply spaces, right? As regards, another thing Swan shares with us is that we use this symbol 1p, which can be read out as penny or p, and 5p would be pence, which is penny in the plural, right? Un centavo, 5 centavos, right? Now, I wanted to single out this phrase. There are 12 of us in my family. That's how we say how many members a family has. There are 12 of us, there are 6 of us. We also say we're 6, but more idiomatically, there are 12 of us here. And something I had forgotten to add was a reference to height. She is 5'9". Colloquially, people will go 5'9", which is equivalent to 1.75 meters. And this one's, it is underlined in red because they expect the American spelling, right? And because I just did that, which is to translate figures, I think it's really important for you to, every time you come across a unit of measurement that is used in English that doesn't have an equivalent in Spanish, to work it out, right? So they have an idea, because otherwise 5'9" means nothing to us, right? It doesn't really represent a certain height. It doesn't give us any grounding, right? Okay, that's about it. You know, I went very quickly over these points, basically because we're getting to the end of the term, but mostly because I think this is an area that will, I mean, the way you use this will vary depending on where you work, right? You will be expected to follow a certain style guide that will tell you how to use numbers. We used here some aspects that actually may apply in most circumstances. But to be frank, different publishing houses, different people will use different style guides, right? So tread carefully when using numbers. So that's it, and thank you very much.